So going into the Will of Doom, this brings together three things: the reason why Doom's gone, the effect it has on Reed, and the way that Sue sees things after nearly losing Valeria. Because Valeria puts all of that together to shape her plans going forward. And aside from that, you also got Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who's not quite done with Latveria. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so going into this, we start out with Thunderbolt Ross in Latveria, where he's being picked up by a couple of US Marines who've come here to take him back to the US. And now just for reference, this is taking place just after what we saw in issue 10 of the 2025 Red Hulk series, where after being a prisoner in Doom's dungeon, since well before One World Under Doom began, Thunderbolt Ross escaped, he found out what Emperor Doom had done, and he planted an American flag in Latveria. So when these Marines come to bring him back home, they hand him a depowering collar and he's like, yeah, okay, well, I get it. Because he's been missing for a while and they want to make sure that he's not compromised. So Ross puts it on and he boards the chopper. But when he asks one of these guys what's the situation back home since Doom's been ousted, they tell him that they've been doing a ton of retrieval missions, but because things ended so quickly, people are scared to be Americans again. And you already know Thunderbolt Ross don't like the sound of that. But what's interesting here is when he asks them if Washington knows about him planting the American flag here in Latveria, they tell him yes. So Ross asks that they request that you remove it. And the Marine is like, they did, sir. Then the Marine's like, it's a shame we encountered enemy fire and we couldn't complete the mission. As they fly away, leaving that flag in Latveria, making it obvious that they had no intention of moving it. And in a way, this lets Thaddeus Ross know that there are still some Americans who would stand behind what he's doing. But right now, back over in the States, in Virginia, we're given a glimpse of what's been building up since Doom's been gone, when we find that Mayor Terry's been killed or usurped by a Doombot who's taken this position in the name of Doom. And this is just the start of it. But now, given the way that things ended in the conclusion of One World Under Doom, with Doom suddenly disappearing and handing everything over to Valeria, this has the majority of Doom supporters like, no way, because they believe the Fantastic Four forged Doom's will, so a ton of them are protesting outside like, hey, this sounds sketchy. And you know, I would have loved to have seen one of these guys holding up a sign that said Fantastic Forgery or something to that degree. That would have been nice. But Johnny here is like, Reed's not too worried about it. He says it's only going to last a couple weeks, according to his mathematical and psychological predictions. But while Sue and Reed are looking into the legal details associated with Doom's will, Reed's like, it's looking legit because Latvian law allows assets to be owned by minors without any kind of trust requirements, which legally makes Valeria the sole owner of Doom's entire estate. And Foggy tells him here that Doom's liquid assets total just over $5 billion. And that's just based on what Foggy Nelson and Cole North were able to find, without travel access to Latveria since it's currently a war zone, which is in part thanks to Thunderbolt Ross, but also there are a ton of others who want to get their hands on what Doom left behind over there. So for now, they're just going off a list of 20 properties, hundreds of patents, and a letter Doom sent Valeria after his death, which says no man is an island save for Doom. And now, with his boon, Valeria Richards can be her own island as well. And of course, Valeria's like, I don't want it. And I can only imagine had this been my parents, they'd have been like, shut up kid, grown folks are talking. But Reed wraps this up because he's got to head over to a meeting. But on the way out, Foggy congratulates Valeria on being the richest kid in the world. And after this, when we head over to the White House, we jump into a conversation between Thunderbolt Ross and Secretary Brooke, where now, after Ross has been cleared by the Pentagon, he's requesting to get his depowering collar removed. But Secretary Brooke is like, nope, denied. And he tells Ross to just be happy that he's been reinstated as general, which is progress. And it's nice because I've been trying not to call him General Ross for a long time now. But it's pretty obvious why the US is keeping General Ross on the short leash, because when he planted that flag in Latveria, that had the United Nations looking at the US sideways. And that's what the secretary tells Ross here. But in return, Ross expresses what he believes the justification behind it, because he was an American prisoner being held by Doom for months, who then had to free himself. And he tells Secretary Brooke, the world rolled over for Doom, sir. And now the world needs to know that we're still here, that America's still here. And Secretary Brooke's like, yeah, we're still here, but we're not there, because planting that flag is not representative of the US resisting. It shows their occupation. And that's where the general begins to get way more straightforward about it. Because then he's like, with all due respect, sir, who else should occupy Latveria? They're unstable. There's already rumblings of some Doom wannabe taking over, hunting down a secret weapon stash. You think we should just sit back while... And that's when this conversation is cut short by the arrival of Ben and Reed. because when Reed mentioned he had to be at a meeting earlier, he was talking about coming here to meet with the Secretary of State. And though Reed is looking forward to this meeting, the feeling is not mutual for Secretary Brooke, because everything he's dealing with right now, it's all about cleaning up the mess that Doom left for the United States. So when he sees Reed Richards, a guy who's been dealing with Doom for years, a guy who could have possibly seen one world under Doom coming for some time, only for Reed to take it upon himself to deal with Doom instead of collaborating with the authorities. But now Reed's coming to meet the Secretary of State for the first time in the aftermath, so he lets Reed have it. But then Benz tries to step in with the "hey pal," and Secretary Brooke stops him right there like "pow," and he goes off again like that's the problem. And he tells Ben, "You all think you're above the legal institutions of this country. The moment you get superpowers, your head blows up and you think you can do whatever you want." And that's where General Ross catches a stray. He's like, "I got a 3-star general who should know the importance of chain of command, but he can turn to a bright red Hulk. The result? He's trying to dictate US foreign policy." And General Ross is over there looking like, "Why you gotta put me in this?" But General Ross speaks up for himself and he's like, "I'm not trying to dictate anything, just suggesting." And that's when Ben's like, "What, that flag stunt? Sounds like more than suggesting, Ross." And that's where Ross is just like, "It's strongly suggesting." Then Reed says here, "Secretary Brooke, I assure you, I didn't know Doom's plan until it was far too late. We did everything we could to stop him. We fought. My daughter even was gravely injured in the battle." And then Secretary Brooke stops him right there. And he's like, "But she magically got better, didn't she? And then inherited a fortune. These aren't normal people problems, Richards. And it's why normal people don't trust you anymore." And now this conversation gets interrupted with the Doom situation getting much worse, because it's here where they're informed about a Doombot uprising, which we caught a glimpse of earlier with the Virginia mayor's office being taken over, but at this time it has quickly escalated all the way to the UN. And even now, Sue, Johnny, and Valeria, they're caught in the middle of this in New York. So immediately Sue puts Valeria in one of her protective force fields, because after One World Under Doom issues 8 and 9, the already existing parental paranoia is now off the charts. Because Valeria's been killed before, and if that happens again, there's no guarantee she's gonna get another do-over. But once they see this Doombot uprising for what it is, Valeria is telling Sue that she can stop this because the Doombots are her property. So if she can get to the master controls, she can shut them down. And when Reed hears this over the call, he's like, "Yeah, well, it makes sense." And they're most likely to find the controls in Latveria. So Sue, Valeria, and Johnny grab the Fantastic car and they make their way there. And Sue basically catches up Johnny along the way, since he missed the whole conversation from that phone call. And while they're on their way, the Doombot uprising hits the White House. And we find out through General Ross that the president's already been moved at this point, so that's not so much a concern at this time. But when this Doombot comes through, it quickly handles Reed by pinning him to the wall and restricting his movement, only to then hit Ben with some gas since his lungs are regular. And after that, General Ross is just light work since he's not able to Hulk out. And the crazy thing about this whole situation with the Doombots, it's that with Doom gone, they've basically taken on his personality in the sense of a hive mind, kind of like what we saw in the Red Hulk series. But now with Doom gone, their new mission is to overthrow multiple governing leaders across the world. But the whole time, each of them are speaking as if they are Doom, as if Doom was still here and he was behind this. And what they're doing now, this was Doom's backup plan at one point, but only if he was forced out of power. But since he gave it up, it kind of puts the Doombots in a weird space. So Reed calls this Doombot out on it. And he tells it, "You can't kill me because the real Doom wouldn't allow it." But the Doombot just hits him with the, "Oh, I don't want to kill you anyway. I just want to give you exquisite pain." As if it believed it was making this choice itself. And aside from what we've seen in the US, Tony Stark has counted 50 Doombots spread throughout the world taking power, with focus on head of state. So to contain this to a degree, we get a glimpse of the Avengers and the X-Men as they try to stop as many of them as they can. And now with Sue, Johnny, and Valeria making their way to Latveria, they find the Doombots rebuilding Doom's castle, which is yet another thing they've been programmed to do after Doom's death, so his presence would still be felt even in his absence. But after searching for a while throughout Doomstat, Valeria's still not able to pick up a signal for Doom's master controls. So Sue's like, okay, there's other places in Latveria that we can search, but Johnny, he wants to stick around and take down some of these warring factions because the people who still live here, they're living in a war zone. But Sue has to pull him to the side and tell him, bro, we ain't even supposed to be here. So she gives him the logical solution like, hey, let the UN handle it, and when they call for our help, we'll show up and give them the backup they need. Then from here, the next spot they head to is Mount Doom, and still Valeria's not picking up a signal. And while they're here, of course, Johnny sees that flag that General Ross had planted, and he gets upset for good reason, because that's literally a Let's Go to War starter kit standing up over there. So Johnny's like, bump that, I'm taking it down. But Sue stops him yet again, because like she said before, they're not supposed to be here. Because even if they're out here doing the right thing, Reed's gonna have to explain to the White House why these superheroes took it upon themselves to do what they wanted to do. But while Valeria's over in the distance inspecting this huge hole in the ground, a bullet flies up and nearly hits her in the head. So Sue goes into murderous mother mode by first protecting Valeria first and foremost, and then disarming these guys and placing them in a force field, aka an airtight bubble, for an insane amount of time. And I mean, we're not told how long these guys are in this bubble, but I imagine 2 dudes in the tight space, a lot of heavy breathing. Pause. But I imagine they're using up what little oxygen they have, is what I'm trying to say. But you really can't blame Sue for going off here, or being quote unquote overprotective, after she literally saw her daughter die not that long ago. And just now, that was a very close call, cause baby girl almost caught one to the dome. And now Valeria's like, she thinks she knows where the controls are, but Sue is like, nope, this is over, we're done. And Johnny tries to tell Sue like, hey, people are counting on them and Val's special, which means she can help and they're gonna be risks, but they can protect her. And Sue, she understands that, but she doesn't want her babies sticking their neck out for nobody. And I'm not a parent, but I don't blame her. But in the middle of this, Sue notices that Val is just gone. Like she took off, because that's what kids do when their parents are having a nervous breakdown. And meanwhile, these 2 dudes in the bubble, they're just reminiscing on the good old days when oxygen was in their lungs. But as it turns out, Valeria took the Fantastic card to follow a clue that Doom left her. And as she heads to the next spot, she's talking to her brother Franklin, and the storm's just getting crazy. But I like how when she tells Franklin what's going on here, when Val tries to tell him like, oh, mom's being too much, you know how she gets. And Franklin's like, Val, you died. Like, dead died. So yeah, she's gonna be a bit overprotective. But Val's just like, I'm fine, I can handle this. But I love how Franklin's just so logical in this conversation. But along the way, the Fantastic car gets struck by lightning, sending it crashing down with Valeria into the water. But during this time, back over with Reed in the White House, he manages to get free from the Doombot by having a brief conversation with it as a form of distraction, so Ben can take some time to gather himself just before he gets back to clobbering. And the Doombot's able to take Ben down since he's not at 100%. But when it turns around to get back to Reed, he's gone, because a crack in the wall is all he needed to slip away. But Reed made sure that he was going to make this time count, because the first thing he did was head over to General Ross and pop that inhibitor collar so he could Hulk out. And General Ross wastes no time going after this Doombot. And Ben's not too far behind him, like, ooh, let me get some of that. And at one point, Ben gets a hit in, but the majority of this beatdown, it's coming from General Ross, who's really just letting out his rage, because at this point, both Doom and his Doombots have disrespected both General Ross and the United States well beyond what he's willing to tolerate. So he goes in on this Doombot, and to the point where Reed and Ben are looking at him like, he's already dead, stop. But I believe Ross also wanted to send a message here, because I believe this is also him showing the strength of the United States, because he's all about the red, white, and blue. Then from here, when we jump back to Valeria, we find that she's safely made her way to Doom Island. And this leads to her having a conversation with the Doombot, much like it's a conversation with her talking directly to Doom. Because it tells her here, this, referring to Doom Island, this and everything I've attained is now yours, dear goddaughter. And what would you do with it all? And Val's response is that she wants to sell it and give the money away. But then she's like, she'll hold on to the island for when Doom comes back. And she says here, maybe a place of tranquility will soothe you into being a different person. And that's when it asks her, why would Doom wish to be a different person? Doom is absolute, child, a refined jewel with faultless facets. Doom is perfection. And that's where Val is just like, because if you could be a different person, you'd still be here with me now, instead of lost in the world beyond this one, which is very true if you look back at Doom's actions and the consequences that follow. And I wouldn't doubt that he's got a crazy return in the making, because hey, you want to crank that hype up to sell those movie tickets. But as far as what Val is saying here, if Doom were to make the decision to change, then not only would he still be here, but so much more would change as a result. But when they go on to talk about what Val's gonna do with Doom's empire, she says that she's decided to start a charity for those who suffered during Doom's reign, and she's gonna call it the Cynthia Von Doom Fund. But then right here, when it starts to tell Val how Doom didn't mean harm, she stops him there and she's like, I know, Uncle Doom, I know, but you did, and the world needs to heal now. Goodbye, Uncle Doom. And then it goes on to tell her, goodbye, dear Valeria. You made me proud every single day, and you will make me proud again when I... And she just shuts it down mid-sentence. And I'm like, yo, I was listening to that. What are you doing? And after that, Val is just like, I'm sorry. And I think she's talking to us as the reader, because she knows we wanted more information. But instead, she was being selfish. But no, just after this, when the others arrive, for one, they're just happy to see that Val's okay. But at the end of the day, the master controls worked. So not only this Doombot, but all the others across the world should all be deactivated. But when Valeria tells him that she's going to go about disposing of the Doombots, Reed goes on to say here, destroying these feels like wiping Victor away completely. He was a monster, but there's still a part of me that wants to hold on to him for a bit longer, to try and change him. I failed. I feel like I had a lifetime to make him a better man, to show him a better way. And that's where Val just says here, Uncle Doom was a force of nature, Dad. The only person who could have changed Dr. Doom was Doom himself. And now between what Reed just said here, as well as what Sue mentioned earlier, as far as giving the UN the backup they need to help the people, in addition to what Val just said about Doom, as far as Doom being the only person who can change Doom, all of these things come together to shape Val's approach for what's next. Because before, she wanted to save this island as a place of tranquility, so when Doom gets back, perhaps it can change him. But now she realizes that's not going to change Doom. But before we get into what Val has planned next, the epilogue starts off with a meeting between General Ross and Secretary Brooke. And at first, General Ross believes that the Secretary of State called him here for a meeting so he could slap another depowering collar on his neck. But come to find out, that's not the case, because Secretary Brooke tells him after having a talk with his team about Ross and the situation at the White House, they've all decided that General Ross is right about Latveria, and they want to bring him in as a consultant on the region. And of course, General Ross agrees to it. And I'm sure he's glad about the increasing number of people starting to see things his way. And back over with Valeria, Franklin's kind of bummed out that she gave a lot of the fortune away, but he's glad she at least kept the island, which was populated before when Doom was alive, and even after the ownership was transferred to Valeria, a lot of them decided to stay. But she's not sure yet if she wants to just let Latveria have it, or if she wants to allow the people here to create their own country. But then it's here where we take a look into Valeria's quote-unquote little project, which is said to be fully operational. So Valeria's like, good, and all she says is you never know when you'll need a little backup. And that's where we see, instead of her just throwing away all the Doombots, she's instead put together a combination of what Reed said about not wanting to get rid of them and how he feel like he failed Doom, as well as what Sue said about being ready to help, as well as the whole idea of only Doom being able to change Doom. And from what it looks like, Valeria just took all of those ideas and repurposed the Doombots so they could continue Doom's legacy in a way that Valeria would have hoped to have seen if Doom were ever to become that different person she was talking about before. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and let me know in the comments where you think Val's going to take it from here. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.